So it appears that Donald Trump passed out in the middle of his Newsmax interview tonight. You know, prior to this very strange moment, the interview was going as expected, pretty normal. Corey Lewandowski, the host, was asking Donald Trump some questions, and of course, he was responding with his conspiracy theories, as he always does. But then suddenly, there was just this very weird moment where Lewandowski asked Trump a question, and then there was just radio silence. Not a single word coming from Donald Trump. And it wasn't a technical glitch. It wasn't anything like that. Trump just appeared to go silent, passing out, maybe glitching in the middle of this interview. It was very strange. So I'm going to show you the clip. We'll talk about it a little bit, but I think Sleepy Donald has made yet another appearance. So take a look at it.
Made some recommendations that maybe Joe Biden has to have a drug test before this debate. You've made some great remarks, and let me just remind our viewers kind of what you've said and what your take is on it. Oh. Sir, I think you said that Joe might need a shot to stay up for the debate. I hear that he's practicing standing for 90 minutes is his debate prep. A little different, I think, than what you're used to at some of the rallies you've participated in recently.
Well, if I have to practice standing, we have ourselves a big problem. No, I had heard that, too. He's practicing how to stand or something. Standing.
Yeah, just silence. It seems like Donald Trump had to be jolted back awake to continue his interview. Maybe he had a long day of playing golf and scrolling on social media. I don't know. I don't know what Donald Trump did today aside from that stuff. But I just find it so ironic that this moment happened while they were talking about Joe Biden apparently having a drug test for the debate because they think that Joe Biden is sleepy when Donald Trump is passing out in the middle of an interview. Right. And I honestly, truly don't think it's that far-fetched. The Trump campaign and the MAGA lunatics will say, no, it was this or that or whatever. But Donald Trump has quite the tendency to just have a midday nap, have fall asleep in the middle of a proceeding or an interview or something like that. Remember, Donald Trump is the same guy who fell asleep almost every single day of his criminal trial in New York City. He'd be in the courtroom, facing downward, having his chin on his neck and going slack and whatnot, and drooling on himself to the point where his lawyers would have to shake him. And they'd pass him notes and he wouldn't receive them. They'd have to shake him to come read the notes. So, Donald Trump is one for a good nap, a good passing out. And it seems like that was the case. And as I mentioned, it's just so ironic that they were talking about the drug test not only, but they love to call Joe Biden sleepy and stuff like that. But Donald Trump does this stuff in interviews. He has these rallies where he's getting confused. He's getting lost. He doesn't really know what's going on around him. And now in the middle of interviews, he's just not answering questions, just passing out or glitching or something like that. Something wrong happened to Donald Trump there, and he just decided not to participate in the interview anymore. I think Donald Trump's mental decline is catching up with him, and we're seeing it in real time. It's just rather ironic that that's the talking point they ran with about Joe Biden, except Donald Trump is quite literally the individual they describe. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this further, but I do think it's important to give you some context here as to who Corey Lewandowski is. It just shows you how MAGA operates. So, I dug into him a little bit because the name, it rang a bell for me. And I realized that this is somebody who worked for Donald Trump. And he has not a good history, to put it kindly. Here's an article from CNN talking about this. Former Trump aide Lewandowski makes deal with prosecutors to avoid misdemeanor charge. This was back in 2022. You might be like, well, what's the misdemeanor charge? It's not good. Corey Lewandowski, one of Donald Trump's former top campaign lieutenants, notched a deal with Las Vegas prosecutors over a misdemeanor battery charge stemming from his alleged sexual harassment of a major Republican donor's wife in 2021. So, I just think that this is an important point to make because it just kind of provides you some context of what we just watched right there. So a man who had to strike a deal with prosecutors over battery charges for sexually assaulting a man's wife is interviewing the convicted felon, the proven sexual abuser, the proven fraudster, who's also passing out in the middle of their interview. Is that not just the perfect summary of MAGA and the people that Donald Trump has around him and how his campaign is going and how Donald Trump is these days? Are you kidding me? That is what MAGA is. Why are so many people, I think we should be asking ourselves genuinely, why are so many people surrounding Donald Trump and around Trump and on these Republican media outlets either like criminals or people who've been held civilly liable for things or had to strike deal with prosecutors? Oh, it's because MAGA is like a crime ring. If you go within 10 feet of Mar-a-Lago, you got to hire yourself a lawyer. If you're in the same room as Donald Trump, well, you better get yourself a lawyer. All of these people who have worked for Donald Trump's legal team are now having to hire their own counsel. You know, MAGA doesn't stand for Make America Great Again. It stands for Make Attorneys Get Attorneys. That's what it stands for, I've heard. So I just wanted to provide you with that interesting context about the interview of which Donald Trump is like glitching in the middle of. But it actually got worse. Like Trump's mental decline was very much on display in this specific interview, and it actually got worse. So here's another clip from this interview where Donald Trump is talking about immigration, and this is just moments after he had his little moment. So take a look.
But we lose think of it, hundreds of thousands of people are dying at our border, coming through our border every year because of our border.
So I guess numbers are also hard for Donald Trump, right? He says we have hundreds of people dying, and then he changed it to hundreds of thousands, and he says that they're losing their lives because of the border. This barrier between two countries is apparently the cause of death for hundreds of thousands of people. Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about right there, but here's the actual truth about the matter. You know, Donald Trump is going to and has continued to try to frame the border as something that's just taking the lives of so many Americans. But the actual data does not show that. It does not show that hundreds of thousands of Americans are dying because of the border or, quite frankly, anybody coming in from the border. The data shows the opposite, actually, that native-born Americans, fun fact, are more likely to commit violent crime or more likely to kill than undocumented migrants. So, you know, Donald Trump is just doing this demonization thing, but he's doing it while numbers are apparently difficult for him, and he's also just completely butchering the data. There's not an ounce of truth in what Donald Trump just said. So just to summarize what we just saw from Trump in this Newsmax interview, a guy who had to plead with prosecutors, strike a deal for battery charges, is interviewing the convicted felon who is passing out in the middle of the interview, and it's also completely messing up his statistics, and apparently numbers are now a challenge for him. This is the Republican nominee for president, everybody. This is the Republican nominee. You have this mess over here with Donald Trump all the way over there, all the way over there. We don't want to be near it. And then over here, you have President Joe Biden, who's effective, he's smart, he's compassionate, he's caring, he's experienced. I mean, he has all the right things you would want in a president, and he gets a lot of stuff done. Investing in infrastructure, expanding veterans' healthcare, fighting climate change, all this really good stuff, protecting women's reproductive rights and appointing pro-choice judges, all that stuff. It is, as I've said before, the easiest choice as Americans we'll ever have to make. You have this that's really effective, good president, good team over here, really solid administration. And then over there, you have this mess. Corey Lewandowski will be back in the White House if Trump wins, no doubt. Does anybody want that? Is that the future that anybody wants for the country? I don't think so. So anyway, that was Donald Trump's quite disastrous interview tonight with Newsmax, and him, as I mentioned earlier, just like freezing, glitching, passing out during the middle of the interview and creating a very awkward moment where the Newsmax host has to like try to run cover for him, try to make sure that people aren't seeing him as like the declining man that we all know him to be. So just had to talk about that clip and show you. But anyway, I'll leave the video there. Thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Make sure to drop a like down below. It really goes an incredibly long way. Also subscribe. We're approaching 50,000 subscribers, which is crazy. So it would mean a lot if you could help me get there. And of course, comment down below. Let me know what you think about this and everything we just talked about. And as I always say, I greatly appreciate you. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.